Hi there, welcome back to the 4th episode of Mythbusters.
You can't say this, you can't say that. How are you supposed we're dragging China?
The Chinese really take it to the next level. These people literally eat anything that moves.
I encountered Asian stereotypes. Never encountered
China
Asian stereotypes before.
certain traits.
I didn't know that.
Opening up and freedom of expression.
Are Chinese stealing their app ideas from the West? Really great question. So yes and no. Initially, when Chinese internet first exploded, and a lot of people don't realize this, but it was only until about 10-20 years ago that Chinese internet started to gain the kind of mass traction that happened in the West a lot longer, maybe like a decade before China. A lot of the tech companies in China, when they started to build apps, they had existing models that they could look at to help them to build better apps. I guess the initial answer is yes. Some of the apps, such as Baidu, is clearly replicating what Google is doing. Youku is clearly inspired, let's say, by YouTube. And likewise, when WeChat first came out, it was very similar to WhatsApp. But what's interesting is that once China had the foundation built, it was completely different. Everything evolved in its own right for the Chinese market. And now, a lot of these apps have gone way beyond what the Western apps were doing and how they copied it to a point where the Western apps now copying Chinese apps. So let me give you a few examples. First of all, WeChat, right? Everyone knows WeChat is a messaging app, and it was very similar to WhatsApp when they first started. But then it evolved into more of a service model as an app. In a sense that you're able to split your bills. With WeChat Pay, you can pay for your groceries, you can pay for your shop from like an ayi or like an auntie on the street who are selling vegetables. You can pay for your breakfast. You basically, all your bills, you can pay for everything on there. Another example is that you can take your ticket and queue before you even get to the bank. You can book your travel, you can book your taxi, book cinema tickets. You can basically do everything that you would do on various other apps as you would in the West. So I've always said that WeChat is more of a social OS. So if you think about it, an OS, i.e. Windows or OS X, is basically a blank sheet, a kernel, where you can customize it to your needs. And that's exactly what WeChat is. But instead of a kernel, it's a social app that weaves the web of services together. Because everyone customizes WeChat with mini programs, which is similar to apps, to their own needs. What are the apps that are currently in China that don't exist in West? There's not many apps that are in China that are not in the West. But what I will say is a lot of the apps that you have in the West are almost like a stripped down bare bone version of apps in China. One of the best examples, I've already mentioned WeChat compared to WhatsApp earlier, and WhatsApp now is actually copying WeChat and trying to be a service application out there, testing payments in South America. They're also providing customer service in certain regions, which is exactly what WeChat was really famous from, what they invented after they were inspired by WhatsApp in the first place. So a really good example is Douyin versus TikTok, right? So for example, TikTok is pretty much just a short video platform and that's it. There's live streaming, they're trying to do e-commerce right now, but Douyin, a Chinese version of TikTok in China, is so much more advanced. E-commerce has been on that platform for years and years and years. You can do cool things such as like watch films together in a room. You can do like karaoke together. There's community functions where creators can engage with the followers on almost a one-to-one basis. There's so many features, some really cool AI features as well that are in beta test on Douyin. I think there's like 20-30 plus features that are not on TikTok. And this is the same across the board. Bilibili, which is kind of like the new video platform, versus YouTube. The functionality is so different and is so rich in China. The only one thing that I could think of is an app called Soul. Very popular in China, it has been for 2 to 3 years now. It's basically kind of like a networking app slash dating app where you're able to meet people without knowing what they look like. So connecting based on just your interests and the way you talk to each other and your hobbies, and then you can decide to share photos and stuff later. As far as I know, I could be wrong, comment below if I am, there isn't anything like that in the West. I think the stereotype exists because honestly, as I said at the start, Chinese tech companies did in fact copy a lot of Western apps when they first started. But as I mentioned, then they very quickly evolved way beyond their Western counterparts, and now in fact the Western apps are trying to copy the Chinese apps. It's a win-win situation for everyone because competition creates innovation, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of China and the West over the next 5 years.